On the 11th order of business, the House has before it House Bill 1379, which has been read. Mr. Chief Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, House Bill 1379, introduced by Representatives Klein and other House and Senate sponsors. House Bill 1379 is a bill for an act providing an appropriation to the Office of Management and Budget for the construction of a governor's residence and executive conference center. Mr. Speaker, your Government and Veterans Affairs Committee recommends due pass on House Bill 1379 by a vote of 9 yeas, 5 nays, 0 absent, and 0 not voting. Mr. Speaker.
Representative Lauser. Oh, excuse me, Representative Bainey.
Sorry about that, Mr. Speaker. I forgot to push my button. Mr. Speaker and members of the Assembly, House Bill 1379 received a due pass in the Government and Veterans Affairs Committee. House Bill 1379 authorizes the using of up to $3 million from the Capitol Grounds Building Fund. The money from this fund comes from the land that was given it by the federal government for the use of maintaining the Capitol grounds. Currently, there is $2.9 million in the fund, with approximately $1.3 million coming in yearly. Currently, there is one oil well on the lands, and I think there's some more actually in the process of leasing. The current governor's residence was completed in 1960. Governor Davis and his family were the first to reside in the residence. There were no significant upgrades to the residence until Governor Schaefer moved in 1993. Private funding was raised to make some minor upgrades, carpets, painting, etc. This amounted to about $300,000. In addition, some foundation and general fund money was used to repair the roof in 2011 to fix a leaky roof. There was some ventilation. There was no ventilation in the attic, and the insulation was damp, and some was replaced. But there is uncertainty if there is mold in the attic or not. At present, there is approximately $3 million in Capitol Grounds Building Fund, and approximately $1.3 is coming in. The benchmark is there is a benchmark in the bill that there needs to be $1.5 million in private funds that needs to be raised before design and construction begin. The Capitol Grounds Building Commission study has recommended a 5,000 square foot expansion of the residence and numerous upgrades to bring it up to ADA requirements with an estimated price tag of $2.852 million. Currently, the governor has no office space in the residence. The new governor's residence would be called the Governor's Residence and Executive Conference Center. This would allow the governor to host dignitaries from around the world in a first-class facility and provide the needed security for them as well, and also would allow him to host dinners and have them spend the night in their own suite in the residence. There would be approximate space for about 55 cars, as well know, as when we go to the governor's residence for a reception. We just hope we don't receive a parking ticket on the street. Let's show the world we are a first-class state with a first-class facility, and let us be proud of it. This is money that is not coming out of the general fund, but a special funds provided by the Capitol Grounds Building Fund, which was created when we were formed by statehood. Mr. Speaker and members of the Assembly, our Government and Veterans Affairs urges a due pass in House Bill 1379.
Is there any discussion? Representative J. Kelch.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I was just wondering, will the carrier of the bill answer a question?
Representative Bainey, would you yield to a question?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I will.
Representative Kelch.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was just wondering, did the governor or anyone come in and request this, testify in favor of it, or what was the testimony in favor, against, or is this money that we're spending because we have the money, or wouldn't it be easier to add on a little office space and maybe a room for visiting people or something rather than a whole new residence? 1960, this isn't really an old house. If you go through the country, there's a lot of houses a lot older than that, but I think we need some explanation of how this bill came about, if there was a request for the money to be spent or what happened. Thank you.
Representative Bainey.
Mr. Speaker and Representative Kelch, the bill was come out of the Capitol Grounds Planning Commission. They did a study on the residents in this last interim. And I know Representative Klein was on that. I know you'll have further information on this. Basically, the governor did come in and was opposed to this, but he's not in favor of the bill. But as it all is with most governors, I'm sure they don't want to have it on the record that they got a new mansion or a new residence. this is actually a good bill, and I think it is time that we do start having a first-class facility for the state. And as we know, it is outdated and it does need a lot of work. And whatever happens, if they decide to demolition the old building or if they decide to build on a new location, that has not been decided yet.
Further discussion? Representative Bowe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the bill carrier yield to a question?
Representative Baining, would you yield to another question?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I will.
Representative Bowe.
Why are we depending on private donations to pay for a share of this? Why don't we just pay for it all ourselves?
Representative Baining.
Mr. Speaker and Representative Bull, we did this with the Heritage Center. I think it was about a $53 million project, and I think in that there was like $10 million in private funds that needed to be raised before the project would go forward. And the Planning Commission, or in the bill sponsors in this, felt that it was a better way to go to get some private funds in to help pay for that as well. The special funds we're talking about are not coming out of the general fund. They are special funds that are used for the capital grounds projects as well.
May I continue?
You may continue, Representative Bowe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members of the Assembly, I don't like the idea of using private funds to fund the governor's residence. Compared to the historical center, it's a different animal. It would give the illusion that the governor's mansion was for sale. I think that if we're going to build it, we should build it with our own funds. Thank you.
Representative Jay Kelch.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I guess if the governor came in and testified against the bill, he may have very well, because he didn't want it on his record that he was asking for a new house or a new residence. He may have very well come in and testified against the bill because we don't need it. And I think this needs a little more study than just going ahead with it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Delzer.
Mr. Speaker and members of the Assembly, we have to set our own priorities this session. We've got some money, but we are spending money too. Personally, I'm not going to support this, and one of the reasons I'm not is because the capital construction money could be used elsewhere. There's other places in the budget where we're asking for general fund money to do some stuff on the Capitol grounds. We haven't decided whether we're going to do those or not. This is up to everybody's own choice, but I'm not going to support it.
Representative Klein.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members of the Assembly. Representative Benning did a fine job in explaining this thing. Maybe I can add some to it, having served on the Capitol Grounds Planning Commission for a number of years. And we have been wrestling with this problem for some time. Basically, the governor's mansion, and I'll use that term lightly, was finished in 1960, 53 years ago. The only changes, additions were made in 61 when Governor Guy moved in with his 3 children, and the basement was finished, adding 2 bedrooms and a bathroom. In 1993, when Governor Schaefer moved in, private funding was raised to make some minor upgrades, carpet, painting, and so on. This amounted to about $300,000. Some foundation and general fund dollars of about $75,000 were expended in 1997 to repair the leaking roof, replace insulation, and so forth. We have ADA, fire code, asbestos, mold, and safety problems. An architect was retained to provide a complete list of needed requirements, and his report was accepted, showing that the total cost of renovations and upgrades to amount to about $2.852 million. His recommendation was to build new. It seems like a no-brainer to conclude that tearing into an existing building, that the cost will not increase. So why not add $1.5 million in private donations and provide a facility we can be proud of? This is the People's House, and along with the great Heritage Center and the fine Capitol building, will be a great asset to North Dakota. Remember, this is not general fund money, but comes from the Capitol Grounds Maintenance Fund and private fundraising. If not now, when? Let's do the right thing and vote green. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Mooney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the Assembly. And I'm only going to echo what I stated in committee. I'm not in favor of this, and it comes back to a real fundamental place for me, and that is back where I come from in Trail County. Our people there expect us to justify everything that we do when we're expending taxpayer dollars. And I realize that this comes from one specific fund, but in the end, when that fund is depleted, then it has to come from somewhere, and that's the taxpayer. For me, this is too much. It's too soon. In our world, we spent nearly 10 years coming up with one project that we were able to finally justify to our taxpayers and feel validated that what we were doing was appropriate on their behalf. And to me, to move forward this quickly with a project that's this massive and with opposition from our own governor, I just think that we can take our time and we can study it out a little bit longer. Thank you.
Representative Rust.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm going to come at this from a little bit different angle. My wife, as one of the legislators' wives, went on a tour of the governor's residence. When she came back, she said to me, "Have you ever been on the tour of the governor's residence?" I said, "No, I have not." She said, "I was appalled." She said, "I think they got pink fixtures in their bathroom, or yellow, I can't remember, it was one or the other." But she said, "You know, you would think that the state of North Dakota would want to have a place for the governor that would be something to be proud of, as opposed to something that really looks like it needs to be torn down." And judging from her comments, she's pretty conservative. She might think that I'm even tight, but judging from her, I would have to say that I've heard that comment from other people as well, that that place needs to be redone. I'd urge a green vote.
Representative Thorson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of the Assembly. A previous speaker said that this might be a little quick to do, that we should study it. Well, in fact, we did. In the 2009 session, we had House Bill 1403 that Representative Casper and myself and some others put in, which would have directed general fund dollars to build a governor's residence. And there was not support for it at that time, and the discussion at that time was perhaps we should look at using other sources of funding. And that bill was turned into a study resolution, including studying the governor's residence. And I think, as Representative Klein said, they have looked at this. There is a need there to do something. And rather than fixing something that is perhaps broken beyond repair, we could start again and do something that will last for a long, long time. Another point, Trail County was mentioned, and I too have roots in Trail County, and I know the people there want to justify how their money is spent. And I remember as a child, my grandmother had a friend who worked in the courthouse there, and I used to get to go visit as a child. Many, many years ago, the people there put their dollars into building something which would be a lasting legacy for that county. I think we have an opportunity to do the same thing for the state of North Dakota, for the entire state. I would urge the Assembly to pass this bill.
Representative Casper.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of the Assembly. Governor's house, White House. Whose house is the house? It's the house of the people. The governor's residence is not Governor Dalrymple's house. It's not Governor Schaefer's house. It's not Governor Sinner's house. It's not Governor Olson's house. It's the house of the people. Any one of those governors in the past, I would suggest, if they had been faced with this decision that we're deciding on the floor today, would have said, we don't need a house. What kind of a position is that to put them in? Obviously, it's a self-serving position. You can't win on that situation. It's not the governor's responsibility to make this decision. It's this body's responsibility to make this decision. We have a house that is outdated, in my opinion, does not serve the state of North Dakota well at all. Our governor is now entertaining dignitaries from around the world. We are the world envy in many ways. Presidents of countries come to North Dakota to meet with our governor. For those of you who have had the opportunity to be in that house, you know there is not adequate facilities to properly entertain. Our governor does business for the state of North Dakota. He represents the people of North Dakota. That House sends an image around the world, to the world. It's time to make a change. Where does the funds come from? These are not the taxpayers' dollars. When we became a state in 1889, the federal government deeded land to the state of North Dakota to perpetually fund the Capitol grounds improvement. That's where these dollars are coming from, and now we have an oil well. $1 million and some per year, from what I understand, coming in. And you know, there might be more oil wells coming. So, Mr. Speaker, members of the Assembly, now is the right time. Let's build this house for the people of North Dakota.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the House has before it for final consideration House Bill 1379. The clerk will open the key and you may record your vote. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? The key will be closed and the clerk will take the record. Final vote shows 40 yea, 51 nay, 3 absent and not voting. House Bill 1379 is declared failed. Continuing